Welcome back to Brojo Online. Today we're going to take a softer approach. We're going to talk about being kind to yourself. We're going to try and unpack what it means to love yourself. There's a lot out there about loving yourself, but in my opinion, it's mostly bullshit. You can't really apply it, or it doesn't really work, or it comes from people who don't understand it themselves. And so I wanted to put something out there that people can actually use to feel better about being with themselves. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at why people struggle with it, why nearly everybody seems to struggle with it, what causes it. We're going to look at its connection to concepts like stress, pressure, being not good enough, and living in a maladaptive society, living in a world that makes it harder to love yourself. And most importantly, and this will be near the end of the podcast, we're going to talk about practical solutions. We're going to talk about ways you can change your behavior, exercises, and practices you can engage in so that you like you more. Give a little backstory. This is something I've struggled with my whole life. Of all my values, I think acceptance is the one I struggle with the most. Acceptance is allowing what is to exist without trying to control it, letting go of control. I'm not a big fan of letting go of control, never have been. But being unable to let go of something that you cannot control and should not control is a massive cause of suffering. And when that thing is yourself, then we get self-loathing, or at least frustration with yourself. And that's something I've struggled with ever since I can remember. And partly it's because there's very little out there to help with this that is actually practically applicable in real life and actually works. There's a lot of platitudes out there, there's a lot of books about it, a lot of videos about it, but when you actually go to do it, nothing really changes for very long. It doesn't really deal with the complex problems of the human psyche. So people tend to, and this has been my case as well, either give up completely and think of that as self-care, have no standards, or, fluctuate between that and pressuring yourself to achieve highly. This kind of high, low, high, low. So procrastination followed by bursts of busyness and pressure, followed by more procrastination and giving up, going up and down this fucking roller coaster. I've been doing that my whole life. And this is what I see most people do. Most people don't seem to be able to cope. They use coping mechanisms. If you think of it this way, if you think that any of these things I'm about to list are a sign that a person has confidence problems, as in they have problems being kind to themselves and loving themselves, then you'll see how many people are struggling. So being busy, right? Doing more than you need to do. That's a coping mechanism. Alcohol, particularly in social situations. Any other kinds of drugs, gambling, porn, working really hard. Not to mention things like people pleasing, showing off, flitting from hobby to hobby or relationship to relationship, sexual addiction. All of these are signs of someone who's not content just being who they are. I mean, can you think of anyone who doesn't do any of those things? Probably not, right? So if you've ever wondered, are you the only one struggling with this? Nah. The rare ones are the ones who aren't. But over the last few years, especially since my daughter was born, I was forced into a position where I just could not achieve to the level I did previously. I was forced to accept that I was in reduced capacity due to sleep deprivation and parenting responsibilities. I realized I have to figure this out. I have to be okay with not impressing myself with new growth at every second. I have to be okay with not winning all the time. I have to be okay with being mediocre in my output, or otherwise I'm just going to suffer. See, previously, I'm kind of gifted and cursed. I'm a high performer. I can get a lot done. I can achieve well. I set my mind to something, it will be achieved. And sure, that's got plenty of upsides, but the downside is I expect that from myself, even when it's not possible. And that's where I really suffer, when I can't solve a problem. When it's not that I won't, but I can't. And becoming a father made me realize, I had to reprioritize. I just couldn't do it all anymore. I'd finally reached my capacity. I'd finally reached my limit. And yet I still punished myself for not exceeding that limit, and realized this punishment was serving nobody and just diminished my quality of life, that it was eating away at my self-confidence. And so I had to figure out a way. Now, I'm not saying I've perfected it, but I've definitely gotten onto something that works, and that's what I want to share with you guys today. I am going to cover the practicals at the end of this, but we need to unpack why it happens and what it is before the practical stuff makes sense. So I'm not trying to tease it out. It's just for that to actually be practical, you have to understand what's underneath it. But to sort of throw a bone early, being kind to yourself, loving yourself is essentially how you would treat somebody else if you loved them and you weren't judgmental and you wanted them to enjoy life with no agenda of your own. You just wanted what was best for them, and you just wanted them to have a good life. How would you talk to them? How would you encourage them or critique them? How would you support them? Well, being kind to yourself is just turning that inwards, doing all that to you as if you are a different person. Now, some of you can't do that yet because you have no frame of reference. You've never treated somebody else like that. You've never truly been helpful or generous or kind without like your own agenda, without trying to control them, without being, manipulative in the way you do it. Some of you might think taking care of someone else means making them into something that you prefer them to be, which isn't love at all, but control, manipulation. But most of you, well, maybe most of you, have had someone in your life that you are non-judgmental towards and that you just want the best for them, and their happiness makes you happy, like whatever makes them happy makes you happy kind of thing. Maybe it's a nephew or your own child, or maybe it's your best friend, somebody where you're just like, I don't need to control this person. I just want them to have a good life, and I'll do whatever I can to support that. And when they're down, you talk to them to try and like get them to see the strengths that they have and be more optimistic. And when they make mistakes, you try to ease them up on being hard on themselves and want them to just sort of like take the lesson and move on and so on. You've got that kind of attitude towards them. If you can do that with someone else, then this isn't a how-to practical problem, really. You know how to do it. You just have a double standard. You don't do it to yourself. Everybody else gets this loving treatment, or some other people get this loving treatment from you, but you don't get it from you. So the tools are there, but you're like a mechanic who has a shitty car in their garage. Like you fix everybody else's car, but your one rusts to pieces. And this double standard is ego. You think you deserve worse treatment. You're special, aren't you? So everybody else, you're compassionate and understanding and encouraging and tolerant of their humanity, but you, no, no, no tolerance for you. You've got to be perfect. You've got to do more. You've got to be better, more independent, higher success than these other people who you are kinder towards, who you're more tolerant of. So when you think you deserve harsher treatment than others, then you're saying you're special, and that's an ego thing. Even if it's negative, it's ego. You're still saying I'm significantly different to others. That's ego. Because you're fucking not. You're just another primate. Anything else you tell yourself is a bullshit story. One of the other practical things that we're about to dive into deeply is I think the best way to frame it is reduction of stress. Right? Stress is the definition of not enjoying life, isn't it? That's the word we give to the state of not enjoying life. Therefore, causing yourself stress is the opposite to kindness. And reducing stress must be, in some way, kindness. Right? So if you do anything to yourself that either immediately or delayed causes more stress, then that is unkind treatment of yourself. That is unloving. Right? We don't stress out the people we love. Or at least if we're doing that, then in that moment we're not being loving. So this is what I think is the easiest way to kind of grab onto this practically is stress. Is what I'm doing causing me more or less stress in the short term and the long run? Is it improving my quality of life mentally, psychologically, which is the only place that quality of life exists? Or is it reducing it? So being kind to yourself is anything that reduces or replaces stress with enjoyment, meaning, satisfaction, love. And not the instant gratification stuff like pleasure or sort of immediate highs, but more the longer term enjoyment and fulfillment in life. Anything that does moves from the stress end of the spectrum to the enjoyment and meaning end of the spectrum is an act of kindness, right? It's what you do to somebody else if you really cared about them and weren't judgmental and loved them. You try and remove them from the stress to the enjoyment side of life, right? Thank you for showing an interest in the Nice Guy Brotherhood, a group coaching community program for nice guys and people pleasers who want to become more confident and assertive to do better in their relationships and their careers. This is also for any man who wants to become more masculine, more bold, more honest, and more authentic. So in this program, we focus in on a lot of the people pleaser and approval seeking tendencies that hold men back from achieving full self-confidence and healthy relationships. Things like avoiding conflict, trying to fix other people's emotions, molding yourself to other people's preferences, failing to stand up for yourself, not going for what you really want, and not knowing who you really are. The goal, through the support of myself and the other members of the community, is to help you build the backbone to stand up for yourself, to stop caring what other people think of you, to stop getting lost in your thoughts and your feelings, and learn how to act decisively based on your own set of core values rather than what everybody else wants you to do. So we're looking to replace things like conflict avoidance and procrastination and trying to please others with going for what you really want based on who you really are. So we address all these issues through a number of methods. Firstly, we get together each week for a group session. Now, part of that is what's called hot seat coaching, which is somebody gets on the mic with me and we do a coaching session in front of the others, and everybody gives their feedback and support, and we can deal with specific issues that's coming up for that person in their life in relation to building confidence and overcoming nice guy syndrome. We also have group discussions during these calls. We share links and resources, feedback, questions, and everything we can do to support each other's growth. And then also, alongside these group calls, you get access to my full online library of self-development courses, which includes things like building rapport, setting boundaries, and learning to confront your fears. Now, if you're interested in the group, we have a deal where you get your first month for just $1 so that you can try it before you buy it and get a sense if it's really right for you and if these are the people that are going to help you achieve your goals. Once your first month is up, if you want to continue, then we have a monthly membership subscription. It's $250 US per month for full access to everything. This includes the entire archive of recordings from all the calls that we've had so far. And if you come along with a friend, both of you will get a 50% discount for joining together. There's what we call a zero risk guarantee. If at any time you're unsatisfied with the program, you can quit and you'll get your money from the last month given back to you, no questions asked. So come and check it out. If nothing else, for $1, you get access to everything for an entire month. No risk. I'll even return that dollar if you're not satisfied, because that's how confident I am that this program is going to change your life.